Wheelman is hilarious. This GTA meets Burnout romp isn't a tie into the Fast and the Furious or anything else, yet Vin Diesel is playing the lead and his name is on the cover in a very Seagal or Stallone sort of way. Vin's very own game studio co-developed this, and I like to think that he tried to make himself what he thinks is as mid-2000s cool as he could, complete with a classic double t-shirt combo 3 sizes too small to show off his big virtual muscles. I can just feel the man's ego radiating off this game, and that's no slight towards him. I'm just here to bask in it and soak it all in. And it's a funny game beyond just Vin. The way the game doesn't let you shoot police or civilians, but it lets you blow their cars up with them in it or throw them out of moving cars at full speed is such a silly inconsistency that you can't help but laugh, and the police and civilians always survive and get up no matter what you do to them. Or how about the way that you can walk the streets with an AK and just no one ever bats an eye? It seems that logic's out the window in a game that sees this muscular bald man jumping between moving vehicles every minute. What I find most hysterical is whenever the big fella speaks. I don't know what happened in the recording studio, but he is bass boosted into the heavens and then some. Like, I didn't know my TV could output these new sounds.
No, I just won the lottery, all the cars I want. What the hell's it to you?
Well, let's just say I fix things.
None of the other characters are nearly this bassy, so his voice strikes like lightning, and every single thing he says is just so 80s movie and silly. His character, undercover CIA agent Milo Burek, from start to finish always has full confidence in his own abilities, never raises his voice, and never really shows any emotion beyond calm and collected because he's a masculine B-movie action hero guy. It's so dumb, but it's just so endearing.
Right now you need the best wheelman you can find.
Just like B-movies by definition couldn't capture the quality of a blockbuster, Wheelman's lower budget is immediately apparent. Its open-world rendition of Barcelona feels very lifeless, and spending time in it outside of missions is honestly pretty eerie. The pedestrians feel like a collective consciousness set of robots, the world is a bit too empty, and seeing the same fake advertisements and assets over and over again really reminds you that you're in a video game. Not to mention it has a hazy Unreal 3 glaze over it, you can see some pop-in most of the time, and it's always sunny in Barcelona. It would have been nice to see it light up at night. Despite all this, they have modeled a lot of Barcelona's landmarks, which I appreciate, and this is a unique setting for a video game. I've even noticed a lot of Gaudi architecture like the Casa Batlló, and you can find that bridge from Tony Hawk's Underground 2. If only Vin Diesel would make his own skateboarding game. The story isn't anything to write home about either. It feels like it introduces 50 characters to you at once, the cutscenes are ugly, and it's incredibly convoluted and hard to follow, especially because you have to read quite a lot of text messages and briefing screens just to keep up. Take a look at this massive plot section for Wheelman on Wikipedia. Whoever wrote this is truly a hero of our times, but reading it after having finished the game, it's actually quite a bit more succinct than you might expect. The story really is just that convoluted, and you will lose track of it. I'm not even convinced that Vin himself knows what this game is about.
Milo is a good guy, and the audience is in on the gag that he has to go undercover in order to complete this mission, to root out the bad guys.
Seemingly, none of these shortcomings matter though, because the focus is all on the actual moment-to-moment gameplay. The layout of the city flows well with lots of shortcuts and jumps, and because you can fast travel to missions, the majority of your time will be spent shunting vehicles into walls Burnout style, complete with a takedown cam, hijacking cars and jumping between them, and shooting bad guys out the window. Like Burnout, reckless driving will fill your boost meter, which doubles as an ability meter, where you can press a button to slow down time and shoot bad guys out of your windshield, or flick the car into reverse and do the same. With most of the missions involving chasing someone down, getting chased by lots of enemies, or both at the same time, Wheelman brings a very chaotic energy to the table. You'll quickly figure out the flow of things and settle into a routine, and with the responsive arcadey driving model, you'll be equally as charmed by how over the top it is as you were by the silly B-movie nature to it all. It's easy to forgive the dodgy story and graphics while you're slamming bad guys into walls with some surprisingly good high energy music that incorporates a lot of Latin guitar. But, and of course there's a but, it does start wearing thin, and that's because Wheelman is really afraid of you not having fun. Most of the missions are so easy that they're more of a matter of when you're going to beat them rather than if, because it's really hard to fail when you can just keep swapping into new cars as they get damaged, and because there's almost always no time limit. You can keep chasing that van you're meant to destroy for hours on end if you want to, and if you fall behind, the van will kindly slow down for you and give you plenty of time to catch up. Just destroy it whenever you're ready. already. Plenty of skill-focused games are overly easy though, and it can be fun to just blast through an easy game, so it's not a big crime on its own. The core of the problem is more on a moment-to-moment mechanical level. Because I'll find any excuse to talk about Driver, let's look for a moment at Driver Parallel Lines. In Driver Parallel Lines, you can shoot at enemies out the window in a similar way to Wheelman. It locks on for you, you just need to fire. While playing, you'll realize at some point that swinging your car around to shoot at enemies behind you is an effective strategy, but it's pretty high risk and tricky to learn. You'll need to pull the handbrake, steer the car around, hit reverse, make sure you've timed it all right and counter-steered so that you don't spin out, make sure that you don't hit anything while you're reversing, and then you still have to 180 back around at some point to keep going. It's quite hard to do at first, but it feels amazing when you do pull it off. Now let's look at how Wheelman tackles the same maneuver. If your ability bar is filled up enough, press the down arrow and the car will spin around for you. The game will switch into super slow motion, giving you enough time to aim. You don't need to reverse the car or do anything else but aim, and when you're done or you've depleted the bar, the car spins back around on its own and you resume driving. They've taken what could have been a satisfying move and turned it into an incredibly easy point-and-click free kills ability because, again, the game is afraid that if it were hard to pull off, you'd crash a few times trying it. Your brain's reward systems wouldn't instantly be firing because you wouldn't instantly be having fun, and Wheelman really doesn't want you to not have fun. The leaping between cars mechanic is a single button press and release that's impossible to fail. Shooting out the window is simply a matter of holding down L1. The mission objectives are often way too over-explained and give you no room to figure out things for yourself, and whenever our boy Vin enters a car, it magically gains 10 times more durability than all the other cars around it, because we wouldn't want to worry about the car exploding now, would we? Even if you manage to damage your vehicle enough for it to set fire, it'll politely wait for what feels like minutes for you to exit the car, and as soon as you do, the car just conveniently explodes upon exiting. It's faking what should be like a just made it out alive moment, and it's painfully obvious what it's doing. It's no risk, all reward. Wheelman's biggest crime though is its rubber banding. If you're chasing someone and you're in a smart car, of which there are an incredible amount of in this game by the way, whoever you're chasing will kindly slow down enough for you to be able to catch them. After all, falling behind wouldn't be fun. If you switch to a sports car, they'll magically speed up again, so it just doesn't really matter what you're driving. Oh, and whenever you boost while people are chasing you, they seem to amazingly boost at exactly the same time to keep up with you, so it's often never worth boosting because you're just making things harder for yourself. Because of all of this, motorbikes are by far the most fun vehicles in the game, not only because they're the fastest and most responsive, but really because if you crash hard enough, you'll actually fall off the bike. There's a real risk in riding a bike, and it's exciting when you do get to ride them or when the game makes you ride them. Unfortunately though, they're usually not viable because they're not heavy enough to slam into other vehicles. Similarly, the side missions can be exciting too because they offer some actual challenge through time limits and goals, but they're just too generic. A taxi mode, a racing mode, take down a guy in a time limit, that sort of thing. A bit of fun on the side for a little while, but that's really it. Doing them actually increases the maximum limit on your meter, but with how easy Wheelman is, that meter's very existence is overpowered, so they're completely skippable. On balance, and I really wish this wasn't the case, but Wheelman's thrills can become pretty lukewarm, and with no other aspect to really help support the gameplay, I found it to be a short burst sort of game. Every time I booted it up, I had a good time smashing into things as the beefiest beefcake of them all with his subwoofer voice, but I can never play more than an hour or so of it at once. It doesn't help that as the game goes on, it frequently splices in on-foot third-person shooter missions, which are so basic that I have to assume they're unfinished. Overly generous Rockstar-esque lock-on, only being able to carry one weapon alongside your pistol, which of course never runs out of ammo because that would be not fun, no cover system or jumping or grenades, and enemies that barely move. You're afforded a sprint button and a crouch button, but that's it. Because of the lock-on, there's a Terminator quality to how Vin can just walk through a firefight shooting everyone with perfect accuracy that I find quite appropriate, but beyond that, these shootouts are just straight up bad. They don't take up much of the game, but they do take up far more of the game than they should for a game called Wheelman. It's the Driver 3 problem all over again. Right towards the very end of the game, Wheelman actually starts to pick up again and click together. An end-of-game difficulty spike takes it from being completely trivial to pretty challenging, and I won't say that the story gets good, but it does at least get coherent, as your mission becomes pitting all three of the major gangs against each other by going undercover for each gang and attacking rival gangs. I love that absolutely no one ever figures out that Vin is undercover. Not only does he dress like a narc, but surely since he works for every single gang simultaneously and he's a cop, someone on some level would put together something about him. He even shakes down gang members for information, and everyone just still constantly showers him in love and praise for being an amazing wheelman. It's such a corny power fantasy energy.
I find I admire your abilities all the more.
Anyway, near the end, Vin teams up with two independent crime doers, Lumi and Javier, who you get the sense were meant to be way bigger characters considering Lumi is next to Vin on the loading screens. Also, in all the promotional art and on the front cover, Vin is wearing these sunglasses, but he only wears them in a few cutscenes in the game. It's very disappointing. Towards the end of the game, there's an entire sequence of missions which sees you saving Lumi and Javier from a gang attack on them in a cathedral, which is intense because if you don't get there quick enough, they will die, and then you drive a van out of that cathedral's window and use it to perform a heist at a political rally. Lumi and Javier fill the mission with fun banter, there's more cutscenes everywhere, and generally it's far more well thought out and high quality than the usual go here, do this missions. All of the other missions, aside from the very first one in the game, feel quite unfinished in comparison. And with the extra support of it having more moving parts, some fun characters to listen to, and some actual challenge, the gameplay flaws fade back into the background and it becomes that fun romp that it was the first time you played it. There's one part where you're escaping from the rally, police are all over you, and you need to catch up to Lumi's van to regroup with them. The game shows you this little tutorial message on the side of the screen telling you that you can airjack into allies' vehicles, which they're only telling you now because this is the first and only time that we ever actually do this, and doing it feels cool. Like, you split up with them, they do surveillance while you steal a vehicle, and things go wrong and you gotta regroup on the run. It has that awesome heist movie energy. If only it had gone for this Fast 5 ragtag team thing the whole time. Finally, I can't go on without mentioning the final mission in the game. The CIA dude that Vinny has been reporting to this whole time turns out to be a mastermind bad guy, so you've got to chase him down, and while you're chasing him, he hits you with a Spec Ops The Line style "Do you feel like a hero" speech.
Are you the lantern jawed hero? The ends justifying the means? True to the cause until the bitter end, regardless of consequences, regardless of cost. Is that who you are, my love? The hero surrounded by the burning city you so nobly rescued. Good job, that man. I am happily deserting those whose whole lives are devoted to world domination, to mercilessly crushing opponents whose identity is defined by economic greed, by calculated hysteria generated by an easily manipulated free press, and by simple voter demographics.
Out of nowhere, this game, of all games, decides to drop some quick commentary on capitalism and modern democracy, and the thing on collateral damage is actually pretty spot on. Like, Vin does tear up the city so much, and what good would come from trying to start a full-scale war between gangs? In working for this guy, Vin has just been making things worse, and the game seems to realize this to some extent, but of course Vin doesn't seem to acknowledge this at all or even emotionally respond to it. You take down the bad guy by launching a car into his boat just like in Too Fast, Too Furious. Vin tells who's assumedly a CIA agent over the phone that the job is done. You live happily ever after, and the credits remind you who stars in the game just in case you've forgotten.
Mission succeeded! Yay! All right! Woo!
I love Wheelman a lot more than I love playing it, and I'm sad that I can't really recommend it, but boy am I glad that it exists. It has all the right ideas and it's on the right track for a middle market game, but I just wish it pulled itself over the line to be as fun as it could be. As it stands, it starts decently and it ends decently, but 90% of the game just doesn't really deliver. But this isn't where the Wheelman story ends. No, you see, Wheelman was also meant to have a film sequel produced by Paramount and MTV and written by the guy who did Triple X. It was meant to release around the same time as the game, but for whatever reason, it never came to light. Check out this quote from the CEO of Midway, the game's publisher. "The Wheelman is a groundbreaking new model for our industry. We intend to create a broad arcing experience, simultaneously developing entertainment properties across a number of mediums, with Vin Diesel right at the center of it all." Midway wanted to go really hard on Wheelman, man, and at the same time, they were going downhill fast as a business. Unless they were lying to appease stockholders, it seems that they were to an extent banking on Wheelman as their own Grand Theft Auto, but development must have been tumultuous since the game feels unfinished and since Midway filed for bankruptcy protection before the game came out. Midway would then get bought out by Warner only a couple of months after release, with Warner taking the Wheelman license with them, along with Mortal Kombat. The one tie-in to Wheelman that was almost a reality was a follow-up game called Gunrunner. Now, this was more of a sequel to Stranglehold, another Midway game which starred Chow Yun-Fat and was a game tie-in to the film Hard Boiled, and Vin Diesel was meant to be a playable character in this game. It's not confirmed as to whether this Vin Diesel is the same Vin Diesel as the guy in Wheelman, but regardless, a co-op game starring these two sounds wonderfully absurd, and I wish it actually came out. I'd love to talk about this game more right now, but I definitely need to cover Stranglehold first, so on that note, I hope you enjoyed this reflection on Vin Diesel's Wheelman.
What we did was very innovative on this game, is create something called vehicle melee, which is new to the industry, which is new to gaming.
And with that, I want to thank you all for watching, and as usual, thank all my patrons. So thank you to all my patrons, thank you to the patrons coming up on the screen, and especially thanks to my $5 patrons, Adam Beals, Analog Man, Anthony Gallagher, Anthony Heisel, BC's Gaming Shelf, Big J, Blake Barnett, Boggy Online, Caden the Dingo, Devin Grandal, Dominic Chikoki, Dopants, Gary Pay, James Locke the Large, Casey, Kayla, Labcat, Lachlan Jones, Lil Jake, Lucky the French Dude, Lucas Ray Sevic, Maximilian Kunzman, May Aris, Mazaki, Melanie G, Minimme rubs the lotion upon his skin or else he gets the hose again, Mustache Duct Tape, Mrs. Minimme, Peaceful Kumquat, Plague, Ritalin for Kids, Skied Panthera, Tia, Test Drive Unlimited 2, The Last Great Opium Den, The Mighty Mega Link, Thomas Damsgaard, Traplaw Ross, Travis, Trevor Corbin, Trixie Emerson, Under 10 Hours, Who Walks with Fergus, Writing on Games, and Zindictive. Thank you all for watching, hope you've been staying safe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take it easy.